Hey, welcome to Foreigner in the Philippines. Well, I thought I'd tell you some of the early times that I had in my musical career. When I first came out of the army, I got a job in a club, um, and I did a few clubs in London, and then I got offered a job with a band called Bob Miller and the Millermen. And that turned out to be quite an attitude change for me, because I've been playing to rare audiences where you're playing jazz, and of course you're absolutely dedicated. You wear horn-rimmed glasses and possibly a black beret, and you try and look as cool as you possibly can. Which was difficult in those days. So I got offered this job, and I joined Bob Miller and the Millermen, and it turned out to be an amazing experience, because I hadn't really played with an amplified big band, and the band was about 12 or 13 piece by then, possibly more. And what I hadn't realized was that Bob Miller and the Millermen were, in their own little way, were very famous in England. And we used to travel all over the place and do one-nighters, and I was amazed on the first night that I played with them. Of course, the thing is, you have to remember that you don't go into weeks of rehearsal. When you're a professional musician, you're a reader, and you literally can take up a piece of music. Well, you better be able to. You can take up a piece of music and you can read the whole thing and play it right, by the way. So when you go out on a first gig with a band, it's quite stressful, quite entertaining, quite an adrenaline rush, because the band leader will call out numbers, and he'll say, so-and-so, he'll call out a number, I don't know, Edelweiss, he'll call out the number, and then you'll have a thick pad of music like this, and you'll have to leaf very quickly through alphabetical order, and that will be heavily dependent on what the guy before you did about putting songs back in the right order. So you depend on that to be in the right order, and if not, you're late coming in, and first few nights it can be quite stressful. After the first one, you take the pad home and you put it into immaculate ABC order, alphabetical, and you know where everything is. Then you've got a few that you play every night, you keep on the side, and so on. Well, I got quite a shock, because the first gig that we played was, I think, Weston-super-Mare, if I'm correct, if I'm right in remembering. And we went to this, it's on the west coast, going out west. Weston-super-Mare is a small coastal town, a tourist resort, and we played there, and there people loved Bob Miller and the Millermen, and it was a huge attraction for them. The place was filled, and instead of how I thought it was going to be, that everybody was going to be dancing, nobody danced, because they were packed up against the stage listening. It was quite an experience. The other thing was that because everything is so loud, you have, let's say that this is the bell, the end of the trombone where you're playing, and the sound is coming out here. Let's put it on the side, about there. So you're trying to listen to something that's coming out, and you're behind the sound and it's going out. So at first you're playing and you have no idea what you sound like. You play the notes and you do all of that, but it takes a while to be able to pick your sound out of all of these different sounds that are coming out. So first few days, really exciting. Now, Bob Miller and the Millermen at that time also had a weekly live radio show from the BBC Playhouse on the Embankment, and we used to get there in the morning. We would have a 1.5 hour rehearsal of all new stuff. Anything that was new would be done then. Everybody would just read the part. Any changes that came in, if there was a cut from this to that, if it had to be shortened, you know, and then we'd have maybe 20 minutes or half an hour break, and then we'd be into the live show, and it would be, the red light would be on, and it would be quite tense. That's when I learned something very important there. I used to listen to guys, and they would say about how the red light comes on, and when the red light goes on, it means you better be playing things right. You have to get it right when the red light goes on, because it's recording. So if it's not recording, it's going out live. Now then it was a show called Parade of the Pops. You have a look there. That must have been, I don't know, maybe 63, 64, maybe 64 or 65, 1965 would have been Parade of the Pops, and we would play all of the new stuff that we'd never played. We'd looked at it and played it through, and then they pull the program up when the show goes out, and you just play everything, and it has to be right. And it was. Well, some of the stuff we would have already played. Now during that time we used to have a guest would be on, and we had which was a revelation to me. I wasn't really that familiar with some of these people, but apparently they were quite famous, and they were coming up. Now we never had the Beatles on, because that came, I think, at a later time. I'm not sure, but anyway, but they did have. I wrote down a few things, like I think they had people like Tom Jones, who sang "It's Not Unusual," Engelbert, "Please Release Me." They had Roy Orbison, came from America, and he sang "Pretty Woman." We never had Elton John or Cliff Richard or Boy George, but those are the kind of people that were going around at that time, and I played on most of the shows that we did elsewhere. When we did something from, say, the Grosvenor House Hotel, which always had prestigious gigs. The Miss Universe ball, after the whole thing had been won, was held at the Grosvenor House Hotel. I played the Savoy. I played all of what were, for me then, quite exciting places to play. I played at the Savoy. Boy, there's a great song called "Dancing at the Savoy." And during that time, and later, one story from the Savoy. The Savoy is on the embankment, and it backs onto the embankment, and it fronts onto the Strand, and the Strand is where all of the top shows go on. So you can go to so many shows, and it would be either on the Strand or very close to the Strand. And the Strand is a glitzy kind of street or road, no, street in the centre of London, and it leads away from Trafalgar Square, so it's right in the heart of things. And our friend, I was working at that time with a band called the Roy McVeigh Orchestra and Singers, which was something like a 13-piece band, and we did, and there were 3 or 4 singers, of which I was one, 2 males and 2 females, and we were going to be playing the next day. We were going to be playing with a band that was supposedly the opposite. It was the Johnny Howard Band, and the Johnny Howard Band, the Johnny Howard was always he was a little bit he used to drink, well, he used to drink his we always used to laugh at this, because he used to have his cup of tea, and he would always drink with his finger out like this. and we'd all have a little giggle about that, you know. But anyway, it was serious for Ray McVeigh, and he wanted everybody to be on their best turnout. So he said, I want everybody to give their shoes, because I want them to be whitened, and I'm going to get someone to whiten them for tomorrow, and you'll get your shoes back tomorrow for the gig with Johnny Howard, because I don't want any mistakes when it's Johnny Howard and him looking over in there and saying, oh bloody hell, look at their shoes. That's how Johnny would have spoken. So everybody's brought their change of clothes except my friend Billy, and Billy Ball, the guitarist, had come dressed for the gig. So he was there in his blue jacket and bow tie and his white trousers, in those days white flared trousers, and white shoes. And he said to Ray, oh, I'll whiten them myself, you know. And so Ray, no, no, I'm not taking any chances, you know, I want your shoes. And he said, but Ray, I haven't brought any other shoes with me. I don't care, give me the shoes. So he made poor Billy take off his shoes and give them to him. And Billy walked along the embankment in his stockinged feet to where his car was parked. So he walked out of the Savoy Hotel, stomping at the Savoy, which is a very plush hotel, 5-star I believe, and he walked out in his bow tie and his blue jacket and white trousers with his guitar under his arm and his stocking feet. And he walked out and he walked home, to his car at least. So we used to laugh about that a lot. A lot of things happen in bands which are really funny. And when you think about them later, of course, you know, they're even funnier. What is it about embarrassing moments that you hate it at the time? You say, I wanted the earth to swallow me up. I was so embarrassed. And then you tell people about it. Do you know what happened to me? Oh God, I was so embarrassed. Well, anyway, this man came, and you relive the whole thing again, wanting to be swallowed up by the earth. Well, lots of things happened then that were very funny. So what did we? Some of the other people. There was a guy that he recorded Matthew and Son, which was a pretty good one actually, because it was unusual thing. You know, Matthew and Son. You can see that it's not 4 in a bar, and it was interesting and good to play. I can't remember his name. That's how big an impact he had on me. But he also sang a song which will give you a clue. Some of you guys who like to spot these people, he sang "Morning Has Broken," which is that little almost hymnal thing, and he sang that, and he had a hit with it. Morning is broken, morning has broken, morning has broken like the first morning. That kind of thing. What else? What else did I have? One of the things about working in a band when you're certainly when you're in a British band, and that is that the band leaders are usually, now I'm not talking about the great band leaders like what's his name, Ray Heath. No, I'm not getting that right now, but Johnny Dankworth, right? Johnny Dankworth was a great band. He was a great jazz musician. He was a great alto sax player, right? Now the other man was Ted Heath. Ted, that was his name. Ted Heath. Ted Heath was a former trombone player and a good musician and had a great band. Unfortunately, I never got to play with either of these bands. I came in a little bit late on the scene, and the window of opportunity was closed on me. But I did play with some other good bands, and they were good. But one of the things that echoes throughout all of these is the stories about the band leaders. And the stories about the band leaders are always classic. I didn't work with a man called Joe Loss, but when I was with Ray McVeigh, we were on the same bill as Joe Loss, the Joe Loss Orchestra. And it was he had a TV show and was pretty well known band leader. But it was a little bit hard when the band were not on and they were in the band room, and they were not obviously resting, waiting to go back on. He used to remove his trousers and walk around in those funny 1920s or 1930s suspenders which held your socks up, and his shirt and his shirt tails and his underwear, and he walked around like that in the band room. It was quite disconcerting to go up and have a serious conversation with someone, and he's standing there in his shirt tails with these funny suspenders on. So there was kind of that. There was other, not sure whether these were even real. I do know one of these stories is real, and this was the Bob Miller and the Miller Man. And we were on a gig, and it was one of those gigs where instead of going on a coach or on a minibus, it was close enough to town for us to be able to make our way in. We'd all grouped together in one car, not the whole band, but say 3 or 4 guys living in the same area would get into one car, and we'd drive to the gig and share the gas. So we arrived at this gig that was just outside London, and we were waiting for the lead trumpet player. I think it was the lead trumpet. We're waiting for the lead trumpet, and one of the versions of this story was that it turned out that he'd had an accident on the way and had sprained his ankle and been taken to hospital. So they arrive in there and they speak to the band leader and say, sorry we're late, but hey, the lead trumpet player has had to go to hospital. And the band leader says, oh no, everything happens to me. Such is the selfishness of some of the band leaders then. But the other one was, well, Ray, I think this was about Ray McVeigh. Ray, what about his wife? He said, what, does she play trumpet? Meaning, what about his wife? Shouldn't we tell his wife? And the band leader says, what, does she play trumpet? Such is the caring of the band leader. They used to say that musicians were like mushrooms, kept in the dark and fed on bullshit. Excuse me about that one. So that's some of the little anecdotal things about my life in the music profession in London. Later, I went, when I started with the Ray McVeigh band, which I was in for about 7 years, on the road for most of that time, that I had some great times and some fun times. Ray McVeigh, I always thought was kind of was a likable, pardon the expression, a likable villain. You know, he wasn't going to pay anybody any more than he had to, but he let you do whatever you wanted on stage, and if you did something funny and it was funny, he would laugh as well. And I always remember one of the funny things that he used to do. He used to go, when it got to the end of the number, and he would put his hand up like that to go off, and he would put his hand up like that, and the drummer would go off, and he would go and bite his hand. So a lot of these people had great sense of humour, and some of them were, if not a great sense of humour, were a great source of fun. I think I've already told you this one in another video, but with Johnny Howard Band, and I'll probably get hung up by the thumbs for this if they ever catch me in the UK again, but he was rehearsing the band once for a gig, and as a little joke, the arranger had written in, "Watch out for the caldando." And now in music, they still, in the UK, they were still using, when I was there, they were still using Italian terms. So for quick, it would be allegro, which would be gay. Yeah, they don't use that one anymore. Allegro's okay, all right. But they would say presto for fast. Allegro con brio. All of these are Italian terms, and as a trained professional musician, you'd be required to know these things, because then it would tell you how the thing was to be played. You know, if something was anecdoted like andante, that would be slow. So you would need to know that that was not allegro. It was not the same as allegro. So you needed to know these things. Well, I always used to say that band leaders never let music get in the way of the business. That's the thing for there. That's why they were rich and the musicians were not. But anyway, the arranger had put on the top of the thing, "Watch out for the caldando," and of course there is no such thing as caldando. It's a made-up funny name, and it gave everybody a laugh. And of course the band leader came in, and up he comes with his pen like this, and he said, "All right fellas, here we go. Now, watch out for the caldando." But he was serious, and we all went. Such are the little jokes that we have on the band leaders. So, as I tried to end off a little while ago, thank you for watching. This has been a little bit on the inside of some of the experiences in the music business, which I'll continue another time unless somebody actually waylays me and stops me from doing it. And bye for now. This is a foreigner in the Philippines.